Hi everyone, this is Brian Hayes and welcome to episode 32 of the Music Mind podcast. Today my special guest is London-based trumpeter Louis Dowdeswell. Louis is a genuine rising star on the international trumpet scene. At just 31 years of age, he has played, recorded and performed with some of the biggest names in the music business. He's also a genuine internet sensation in the trumpet world. Please enjoy my conversation with Louis Dowdeswell. Hi Louis and welcome to the Music Mind podcast. It's a great thrill to have you here today, all the way from London, as my special guest for episode 32 in the series.
Thank you very much for having me, Brian. I'm super excited to be involved and looking forward to talking all things music.
Fantastic. Our audience have just seen and heard an amazing video clip, a big band, a power big band version of the Disney song Into the Unknown. Extraordinary. Tell us a bit about that, the recording, the creating of that amazing video and the recording of it.
Well, to begin with, thank you for checking it out. It's a cool video. It's one that I'm quite proud of. And when I started my big band back in around 2015, 2016, I was pretty young on the scene, and I knew all the guys in the band, but only a little bit. I contacted them on a whim to see if they would do something. They're busy guys, to see if they would do something with me, with this Disney project that we were doing, and pretty much all said yes, which was amazing. I'm very, very grateful to have them. But however, we had this Into the Unknown track that I wanted to record, and COVID hit, and I had a recording studio which we couldn't use, and all these things. So I thought, well, why not just get all of my favorite players in the world together instead?
Yeah.
And get them from, Gordon Goodwin, Greg Bissonette, Dan Fanero, David Chismardia, all these great players, Nigel Hitchcock, Sal Salazano, all from different areas of the world. David's from Hungary, LA, London. And so I just crammed it all together. We've got some people playing the same parts as other people, but not at the same time.
Right.
Because that wouldn't work sonically. And then I mixed it all together, mastered it. The video edit took about 2 weeks. It's a big video edit. And then released it, and I'll tell you the one thing I must say though, like, now I've played that, I'm now expected to play that live on gigs. And I tell you, it's more difficult live.
Including the double high D at the end.
On the last note of the gig.
On the last note. It's extraordinary. The musicianship level is just through the roof, but also the video editing and the audio. It's such a credit to you, and I think you're a real good example of what the Music Mind podcast is all about. Like in 2025, the days of just being a great lead trumpeter, and I'm happy to hear your thoughts on this, but there's almost an expectation that you've got to be more than just a great player nowadays. Do you obviously, you've delved into recording, into mixing, I imagine probably a bit of arranging. Do you do some arranging stuff or not?
I don't do much arranging, no.
Okay. But I mean, there's a lot of diversification. Yes, that's when the high notes get harder. You might. I'll
tell you why. I'll tell you why in a minute.
Okay.
Go on.
Yeah, you're only in your early 30s, and yet, like, you are embracing the technology. And there was a problem with COVID. You couldn't get the band together, but you've come up with this international big band of an amazing standard, and you have managed to create that content that we all sit back and watch. I would have happily thought that you'd paid some great video editor to put that together. But as the trumpet player, it's a feather in your cap to have the patience and the skill to learn those skills, audio and visual. What's your take on a musician of your age or even younger coming up? Do they need to be thinking nowadays of being more than just a great player on their instrument?
How long have you got?
Dot points. But yeah.
We could talk about this the whole podcast.
Yeah,
let me tell you why.
Yeah.
For the last 10 years, I'm going to be totally straight and honest with people here. I've been finding it very, very difficult to try and figure out what my role is in the world. Am I a tradesman trumpet player, or am I an artist? And if I'm an artist, what am I doing? These skills are like, everyone thinks that they are someone.
Yep.
And then the skills, you asked me, do you do arranging?
Yes.
And my answer was no, which is the incorrect answer.
Okay.
Right? The reason it's the incorrect answer is I can arrange music. I can literally do it. Yeah. Now, is it in the middle of who my identity is? No, not right now. I don't really sell it as a service.
No.
And the reason for that is because there's not enough time in the world to focus on absolutely everything. And delegation is important, especially if you want to grow. The problem with delegation, like for example, Calamao, who's my best man and has written all of the arrangements for my
extraordinary arranging. Extraordinary arranging. Yeah.
Exactly. And Callum doesn't try and mix music, because he recognizes that that's not that as a team we are more than the sum of our parts. When I was younger and I had loads of time, I wouldn't really let anything get in my way. I became a father. I have 2 children now, 3 and 2 years old, and I absolutely love it. Yeah. And that growth has been extraordinary to see how to become more time efficient so that I have time, very important time with them. This is all relevant to the skills needed. If I was young, if I was talking to a younger person about this sort of thing, you are only going to limit yourself if you don't try and do the things that are put in front of your face. So for example, you're better off being bad at something like mixing and just doing it, and put your pride aside and just do it. And then as you do it, it will get better and better and better. We're obsessed these days with trying to find the best way of doing it. And when I've been in my most unhappy and my most unproductive is when I've been trying to find the best way of doing it rather than just doing it.
Yeah.
So what I'd say is, in today's world, how do people consume music? They consume it on the internet. That's the way that it is. Now, you can fight that all you like, and you hear people all the time say, oh, I wish streaming... I used to be one of these people. Oh, I wish streaming wasn't this, and it shouldn't be that, and I think that it should still be CDs, and then people would value music more. It's like, well, people are struggling enough to value anything right now. You'd be much better off learning how to participate in this world in a way that you can serve and you can use your skills to make things happen. And for me, it wasn't... I didn't even have to analyze it at the time. I just thought, oh, I like that sort of music, and I can get Logic or Reaper or Pro Tools, and I can just dump the tracks in, and how hard can it be, right? That's the mindset you have to have. How hard can it be?
Yeah.
And then your obsessive streak takes you as far as you do. And my obsessive streak actually became part of the distraction, and then it stopped me being able to release anything, which is why my second album has taken so long to come out.
Okay.
And for me, the growth is almost the opposite. It's like learning to be okay with trusting someone else to mix. That's where I'm at now. Yeah. So rather than take the initial approach of, oh, I won't do that, there's no point, I'll get someone else to. You first have to understand what you want in the mix, and then you have to learn to trust someone to do it for you and guide them and lead them. Even if they're a better mixer, you actually elevate yourself to the producer. So now I can produce more albums with this theory because I have a team that I can delegate to. But you have to initially want to understand what all of those single individual parts are. Otherwise, the product that you make is going to only be as good as the person you hire. And how can you know how good they are if you can't hear it for yourself because you've done it yourself?
Yeah, that's great insight. But I want to take you back to the fact that you just happen to play probably one of the hardest instruments to play in the world. To play contemporary trumpet the way you play. One of my heroes when growing up was the great Doc Severinsen, who as a brass player, I'm absolutely sure you've heard of Doc. And I mean, he's dedicated his life. In interviews, someone would say to Doc, what are you doing practicing 8 hours a day? And he'd sort of bark back and say, I'm a professional trumpet player. What do you want me to do? You know, which is that he's from that era of, I just play the trumpet. I think he reluctantly played the flugelhorn, you know, because he probably had to. But you're playing an instrument, and the way you play it at that level, it's not something, unless you have been magically gifted, and I believe I heard you say in an interview, I thought it was a fantastic comment, you said that you've worked harder on the horn than many, but not as hard as others. And I thought that was a wonderful thing to say. You have worked, it's obvious to me, you've worked hard on the trumpet, but I loved how you didn't sort of put yourself on top of Mount Everest as if you've worked the hardest of anyone ever on that instrument. Tell us a bit about your journey on the trumpet. Was it the first instrument you discovered in music? What's your music journey?
Okay, so my mother runs and ran a big band from 1997.
Right.
She is a music teacher.
Yeah.
My father is an electronic engineer, but he has a very intuitive mind. He's the sort of person that can kind of pick anything up and just do it. So he plays bass and violin and I think there was I learned piano when I was 4 and drums when I was 5 and trumpet when I was 7. I believe there was a trumpet just lying in my house somewhere. I don't know if this story is true, but let's go with it because it's a better story than whatever the alternative is.
That's right. Yeah.
It's the one that will inspire the most. There was a trumpet in my house somewhere and I found Abracadabra Brass and I just picked it up and started.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, there I am learning from a page, but maybe we'll go into my teaching philosophy later. I don't know whether that's on the agenda, but I learnt my first notes from looking at Abracadabra Brass.
Yes.
And then I got a trumpet teacher, then a played in some ensembles as a very young child. Went to Wells Cathedral School, which is a specialist music school, at age 10.
Okay.
Moved to another specialist music school at age 16 in Watford here, called the Purcell School of Music. And then I went to the Royal Academy of Music when I was 18, which is the premium school in London.
Okay.
The premier school in London for trumpet, and I studied what I like to call an on-the-fence course, which was in between jazz and classical. I was the only person that did that course. It was kind of curated for me. That was good in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And then I met my wife there,
Yeah.
and then I joined the Sid Lawrence Orchestra, and at the time I was playing in the National Youth Jazz Orchestra, and I kind of see these as little stepping stones on the journey. The Sid Lawrence Orchestra taught me how to be a professional.
Yeah.
It taught me discipline, getting to work early, all of the rules that were needed for work, and then and also sonically joining, like being part of a band. And I believe the Sid band was really a band. It wasn't just like a bunch of scratch players come together. It was a band, and it always sounded better than the players in it, because it sounded better than most bands anyway. It was awesome. So that taught me discipline in that regard. Also, the band leader for that band, Mr. Chris Dean, incredible trombone player, was a very disciplined leader. He was in the army. Chris and I get on unbelievably well. I love him to pieces. And I learned a lot from him about band leading. And then, and obviously my mother as well, running a big band all this time. And then West End shows, film sessions, albums for certain artists, pop, jazz, some classical things, played with the London Symphony Orchestra. So bits and pieces like that along the journey. And then I've kind of got to this point now where it feels like there's a small transition happening. I say small, it's probably sizable, into starting an online Trumpet Academy.
Yes.
And become a soloist, if you will, in a way. And it's this transition from tradesman to artist that has been a very, very difficult thing to do. It's a lot of fear in that. Like, oh, but how do I pay my mortgage if da-da-da-da-da? And so just coming through that and realizing that there are other ways of doing things that aren't just on the template. So like I was living a kind of template musician life.
Yes.
And then that slowly has moved over to maybe more about who I am. And doing these podcasts, for example, is opportunity for me to practice speaking about my journey and how I can serve people in my story. So that's where it's landed now.
What you're saying is you've seen yourself as the tradesman trumpeter, but you don't play like it. I want to talk about how you met Wayne Bergeron. This is not a trumpet podcast, but Wayne is such a fantastic musician. The average member in the public won't have heard his name, but they've certainly heard his playing. And I want to play one of the most beautiful pieces of music I think ever written, When You Wish Upon a Star. I mean, that's a gift from Disney to the world. And this features Wayne Bergeron and yourself, an amazing band of musicians. Let's just take a breath and let the audience look and listen to this arrangement. It's spectacular, and then we'll talk more about it. So, Lewis, that's beautiful playing, extraordinary tone qualities on all of the instruments, not just on Wayne and you out there in the spotlight, but you must appreciate the tone and the musicianship of those players around you. It's absolutely beautiful. It's exquisite.
Thank you. Yeah, it's amazing. I'm very, very blessed to have them play for me.
For those who don't know, Wayne Bergeron, I suppose for the last 30 years, has been Hollywood's hotshot lead player in the studios. You know, some of the stuff he's done on those Pixar movies and just on movies in general and that is absolutely extraordinary. You get in that video to undertake the very challenging role of following Wayne directly after Wayne and taking up the melody after Wayne. Now, I'm sure you must have been on your best behaviour when you're recording that. But if I can pay you a compliment, mate, I think your tone and playing and just the feel you had is every bit as good as Wayne. I know Wayne's twice your age and he's had a lot of health problems, but tell us about your journey, first meeting Wayne Bergeron, and you obviously have developed a friendship there that goes beyond just a casual gig acquaintance.
Absolutely, yeah. So I first heard Wayne play trumpet in 1999, I think, 2000, with the first Big Phat Band album that my mother got from one of her band members. And I didn't know it was Wayne. I just thought this is awesome. So that kind of set my aim, even that young, 7 years old or something, 8 years old. That set my aim. I always wanted to be able to do that. And I went through school, practicing his stuff, like just playing along. And actually put some very old YouTube videos out from about 2009, where it's me in my mother's house playing along with Wayne. No music, just no sheet music, just by ear, trying to copy him.
Yep.
And I got a message in my YouTube from Waynard B, and it's hey Louis, it's Wayne Bergeron here. I've been checking out your stuff. Thanks so much for for doing this.
Yeah.
Here are my charts if you want to do more. So he sent me all the sheet music. So all of a sudden I had the sheet music, which is kind of a magical moment.
Yeah.
And I then contacted him about neck hernia on his website. And then all of a sudden I was sitting in a mathematics class, and I got this phone call off Waynard B on Skype. I had an old Skype phone.
Yeah.
And I just remember getting up from my chair from my maths class and just saying, I've just got to go. Bye, and just walked out and took this phone call. And the teacher's like,
as you do. Got it. You got
it. I'm going. So I took this phone call from Wayno, and he talked to me about the neck thing. Now, interestingly enough, at the time, Wayne didn't put two and two together that I was the same guy that he had contacted. So that was just an interesting little side thing.
Yeah.
We then kept talking, and my mother. Well, I think Wayne's wife, Barb, actually said, hey, Louis, do you want to come over and stay with us in the summer? So just like sort of a mentorship.
Yes.
And my mum was like, yeah, go for it. And I broke my ankle the day before I went. So I was flying on the plane with a broken ankle. And I went over there and I spent a week with Wayno and Barb. And they were amazing. I went to Arturo Sandoval's house on that trip. We hung out, met Gary Grant at the time and Jerry Hay.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing opportunity. I was 18 years old, and I'm very, very grateful for Wayne, opening his house to me and taking this kid over from the other side of the pond.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? It's an extraordinary link from a random thing on. There's a lot of bad aspects of the internet, but there's some incredible things that happen just through the connectivity that you've just described.
I must have recorded When You Wish Upon a Star before this, but I remember Gordon Goodwin getting in touch because Wayne couldn't do a European tour with the Gordon Goodwin Big Phat Band.
Yep.
And I remember it was a dream of mine to see the band. I never thought I'd even see them.
No.
But when they needed a lead trumpet player, I was 23 years old at the time, and I can't believe that Gordon actually took a risk on me, to be honest. It's pretty outrageous. That I went over and played that, went to Prague, Ukraine, Lviv, and then played 2 shows in Manchester, UK.
Yeah.
And played lead trumpet with a Big Phat Band, which was a dream that I thought I had never even had that dream, because it was too far away. So to have experienced that, and for that all to come through my connection with Wayne, and all that I think, as a result of the collaboration on When You Wish Upon a Star, and people seeing that and trusting it and believing in it.
Yes.
All of a sudden, these things happen. Ultimately, it all comes about as a result of doing. Like actually going to LA. A lot of people, maybe the parents would say, "No, you can't do that. Stay with a stranger." Right. I'm very grateful for my mother for letting me go and do that, even though she knew who Wayne was. She'd never spent time with a guy. That's trust, right?
I think you're a classic example of when preparation meets opportunity. There's no way in the world Wayne would have asked you over if he thought you weren't something special as a young kid on the horn. He wouldn't just invite the average, 18-year-old trumpet player over to his house. And do you want to meet Arturo? Oh, he's Jerry Hay, and all that. I just think it's important that you don't undersell that natural gift and the work that you must have put in. Not only is your playing extraordinary on those videos, your presentation is great. I attend the local jazz club here. I'm a member. I love going and watching the players, but a lot of my instruments are 40 and 50 years old, but I keep them in good nick. I'm always a bit disappointed. Not from me, I understand it, but from the general public when someone gets up with a 1958 Mark VI Selmer sax, where you can see the solder joints, it's that rusted and everything. You can actually see where it's been sold. You fully expect a team of cockroaches to come out of the bell while the dude's playing. And I often say to musicians, I get it, it's cool, I'm playing a vintage horn, but what does the average, John and Jane in the audience think of a filthy trumpet, just the filthiest looking trumpet you've ever seen? And you ought to be congratulated. You are presenting yourself beautifully. I think you're a Yamaha artist, are you? Or a Yamaha player? Yes. You have got these beautiful horns in beautiful condition, beautiful mouthpieces, and you present yourself well.
One of the phenomenons about YouTube is that sharp-looking professional videos don't always do the best. Some of the best videos that have ever been, the most viral videos have ever been made, are the ones that are most relatable.
Absolutely.
Now, the interesting thing about what you said is that I'm presenting myself in a way, but if you look in the background of some of my videos, you'll see my boxer shorts just hanging up.
Fine.
In the back,
yeah,
or my kitchen, a complete state. Now, the thing that's funny about that is I was a bit of a scatterbrain, still am to a degree, but particularly back then, very much a scatterbrain. Things were untidy, disorganized, creative type of person. And it shows in the videos. It wasn't intentional. There was nothing contrived about it. But people have commented on that, and the cleaner I've tried to make them is actually it's a balance.
Yes.
People want to feel like they can connect to the person. Now, not everyone's house has to be that messy for them to connect with that. No. But there is some humility in those videos that wasn't contrived. It just was the way it was, and it feels like long ago enough now, and I've grown enough now that you can see my studio now.
Yeah.
Is spotless.
It's great.
But that's only as a result of the growth that's come from recognizing these other things. So I'm hopefully this person now, but I certainly was the guy at the time with the kitchen that was crazy and the windows, and that is part of
who you are, who you were in your growth. In Australia, I'm sure you're probably aware of James Morrison, the great Australian. Oh, yeah.
I need to talk to James.
When James Morrison first started playing in public, he had no dress sense at all. He would turn up late to gigs. One of Australia's greatest ever jazz musicians, the late Don Burrows, who started the jazz course at the New South Wales, the Sydney Conservatorium, to which James attended. Don used to say he couldn't believe when he saw this guy had no sense of dress sense. He'd come in late. Don said to James, and it's in one of James's books, he just said, James, I don't care whether you're the best player in the world. If you can't turn up on time and present yourself professionally, you're no use to me and you're no use to anyone else. And James sees that as a defining moment in his life. He suddenly went to the suit place, and he's never had a suit in his life, and started getting professional clothes, being the first person to turn up for the gig, not the last. So I guess it's a good conversation for people who are watching this. Doesn't matter what instrument you're playing. But the things that struck me on the videos I'm playing of yours is your instruments are in beautiful condition. You're presenting yourself well. I don't care what's in the back. I don't care what yesterday's sandwich is smoking on the back. But what people are looking at, you're setting a great example, a really great example. You've got an amazing video of Nessun Dorma, one of the most famous arias in all of opera. And again, your friend Callum has arranged this. And it starts out beautiful and gets a bit cheeky with some of the big band arrangements. But overall, it's a refreshing change on a song that has been sung and played to death. But when I watched this, I thought, oh, this is great. This is a fresh take on a age-old classic. Without that partial classical training, do you think you could really nail this as good as you did if you had only studied jazz?
So I don't think it's specific that Nessun Dorma happens to be an opera aria. I don't think it's that, because the way I play Nessun Dorma is really the same way I play what would be another one of my tunes. There are other tunes where I've played ballads that are maybe Go the Distance would be a good version, even though that's on flugelhorn. It's still the same thing.
Yes.
The production, the attention to pacing in the sound,
yes,
comes from my influence from the classical world for sure. Also, the way you change notes is not the same. It sounds different. It does come from inspiration, though. It comes from having heard it done, and then knowing what it feels like to do that.
Yes.
So rather than it's not. That's just the way I sing the melody. Sometimes the tune is enough.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm gonna release a new track soon. It's Jerusalem.
Oh, great.
The hymn.
Yeah.
And there's one ad lib that I do where I go ba ba da da instead of ba ba.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to it. It's the only ad lib I do. And I listen to it and I go, huh.
Has it improved it? Yeah.
I actually think it might be more meaningful if I just play it. And see, it's not just about playing the notes, it's about shaping the notes in a way that is natural and good. But every time I try and add, it usually takes away.
Yeah.
So the classical training helps in being able to hear that played in that way. But then if I just apply my sound to it, then I get the result I'm looking for. I'm not an ad-libby kind of guy. I don't play over stuff in an angular manner. I tend to find the most natural approach from one note to the other.
A melody player, basically, because that's what you come across like, a really wonderful singer on the horn, not so much a showman. Let's take a breath here and have a look and a listen to Nessun Dorma with you out front playing absolutely beautifully. Okay, Lewis, what about your role as a music educator? I believe you run something called the Trumpet Academy.
This was a leap for me, a bit of a leap of faith. I was getting to a point in my career where I wanted to see a different life, so I realized I had to start making different decisions, and I got contacted by a 16-year-old kid to put together a Trumpet Academy.
Okay.
And he didn't know who I was. He just was cold emailing me based on how many Instagram followers I had. He's not a trumpet player.
No.
But he's like what you would consider a kind of growth operator, and he knows how to set these things up and build these platforms. Now, I don't know what his intention was, but it's definitely changed now because we know that we're onto something good. There's not really anything on the internet that's quite like it, but it's a community of positive, like-minded trumpet players that are all trying to grow together in an honest, genuine way. Now, you mentioned it earlier. The trumpet is hard.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a difficult instrument. Now, I do also believe that it's hard a lot of the time because we tell ourselves that it's hard. Okay, so if you have any doubt, the instrument's not going to help you. You almost have to fake it in a way.
Yeah.
And you have to tell the instrument what it needs to do.
Mm.
And we started this in March, and now we're in June. And for the first little bit of it, I'll be totally straight with people. I didn't know what people wanted. I didn't know what people needed. I kind of thought I knew what I was doing on the instrument, but then I also realized that wasn't going to help anyone either. So it's how do you teach something like this to 200 people in one go? This is complicated.
Absolutely.
And what I started to, I hit a little bit of a wall, and I was like, I'm a good trumpet player, but then how good am I an educator? Actually, am I? How good at speaking to people on camera and doing it on Zoom before you've ever done it in real life? That's crazy.
Yeah.
But I'm going to treat this no different to how I treated my mixing, my editing, my video editing, whatever like that. It's just another part that's going to come into the middle here.
Yes.
And the way I see this is that it's just a constant growth, and the community is there to that we all grow together, including me. Right? This is just as much about me as it is about anyone else in the academy. It's awesome. I'm very excited. What I'm learning is that I'm pretty much 100% on my philosophy now.
Okay.
Because what it would appear to me is that most amateur players, when they come, is that they have 35 method books in their house, and they're still coming to the academy, and I sort of wonder why. So it begins with why you're doing this, playing, like actually why you're playing. You need to have a defined intention about why you're doing this.
Yeah.
Then you have to figure out what your aim point is to actually define what your aim is. A lot of people live on a mountain, and they're trying to climb the mountain, but there's mist at the top of the mountain. Yeah. And they don't know what the top of the mountain looks like or which direction to go to get there. The reality is there are millions and millions of directions that you can go to get to the top of the mountain, but you might be on the wrong mountain because you can't see the top of it. Right?
Yeah, so I agree. Yeah.
If you kind of get distracted by a method book because you don't realize the purpose of the method book, then you end up making the method book the top of the mountain, and you realize that that's not actually the mountain that you defined, because there's something in your soul that's telling you that you need to define, like you need to decide on what your aim actually is. So once you've defined your aim, which is actually the first thing I get people to do now, and inside the academy you'll find out how to do that, we then start chipping away at getting closer and closer to the thing that you've aimed at. And the problem is that it's like, you've heard that phrase, how do you eat an elephant?
Yeah.
One bite at a time.
That's it.
And people get overwhelmed by the idea that this huge gap between them and the perfect version of them, or the inspiration that they're going. I call it inspiration-driven growth. It's not that, interesting a phrase, but it's descriptive,
I think it's a good phrase. I totally agree with what you're saying. Yeah.
You have to initially have the thing that you're aiming at, and then you just have to make your way towards it. And along that path, you're going to have technical issues, but most, like 95% of them, can be solved by just imitation. Yeah. Like 98%, I'd say, of problems. Now, people don't want to do that because they think that there's a way. This is why it's quite difficult to teach adults. It's easier for people to buy a book to solve the issue.
Yes.
Right? Or if I buy the gym membership, then I'll get fit. It's like people, they need to be motivated and inspired to do the work to get them to the goal. But at the moment, if there's mist at the top of the mountain, they're almost too scared to take the first step.
Yeah.
So my job, the way I see my job now, and everything that's going to be bound up in this, and I believe this, hopefully you can see that in my animation and the passion that I'm speaking with it with,
Yes.
is that people go up the mountain, they get stuck at some point on the mountain, they turn back around, they go to the bottom, they walk around the base, and they go up another way. They get stuck at the same place on the mountain. And it's this getting through this hurdle that they need to do. Or they're on the wrong mountain, they get to the top of the mountain, and they go, actually, this isn't really what I wanted. Or like, I'm not as good as I thought I'd be. I'm on a really short mountain, I need a taller one. Ultimately, the mountain that we're on has to be unlimitedly tall, but we kind of hop between them.
Yes.
You want to be focused on one. So that's the philosophy. And then how we actually bring people to that is really through, at the moment anyway, is through imitation.
This is fantastic because whilst you are relating, your approach to the trumpet, I think it's identical to any instrument. I teach a lot of instruments, and over my lifetime I've done an enormous amount of one-on-one teaching. But the biggest thing I find of students of all ages is the false belief that if they develop the technique, the magic satisfaction is going to come at the end of the rainbow. And I just say to them, what's the song you want to play? So someone say, I'd love to be able to play Amazing Grace. Why are you working through 48 different chromatic scales at 200 beats per minute that would be great for Flight of the Bumblebee, but entirely redundant to play a beautiful, soulful version of Amazing Grace? And they just sort of, well, I just think, haven't I got to be able to really play the instrument well before, in other words, before I can give myself permission to actually play music? The trumpet's a classic instrument to walk down that road.
The trumpet is the biggest instrument to walk down that road because it's one of the hardest ones to play.
Absolutely.
Just from like on a baseline level, it's just difficult. It's got a very high level of entry, and people think that they live in that entry point. What I would say is, what you're saying is not just specific to music; it's specific to everything. So here's a question for the audience.
Yeah.
Right, because this is one that I think I've had to question. When I walk down a road of houses, I see the first house I bump into. This happened to me. I was doing leafleting with my 2-year-old.
Yeah.
And we were walking down these houses, and it was a very expensive road of houses. And the first house is perfect. Like the car is being cleaned.
Yeah.
Doesn't even have to be an expensive car, but the car is being cleaned,
Yeah.
and the front yard is very, very well organized and well looked after and maintained. And then the front of the house, everything looks nice and everything's organized. It's clean. Fine, put it in. You go to the next house, and it's a little bit overgrown, and the car has kind of got stuff in it. It's not been emptied, and I think that one of the biggest problems that people have is that they think that the person that has the nice, beautiful house first had money or something like that, or discipline to afford to get the house and the car in good state. This guy can afford to wash his car once a week. It's like, or is it the other guy who's, does it come the other way around? So it's like a chicken and the egg. Do you need the money and the discipline to get the thing that is clean and tidy and orderly?
Yeah.
Or do you need the orderly thing to get the money and the,
I know what you're saying.
Desire,
Yes.
right? The
Yes.
desire.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's an upside down thing. These people they're taking the technique and they're going, if I get that down first, I'm going to be a great musician.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is, if you point your attention to the thing that you actually want to aim at, the technique comes and it meets it. A great musicianship harbors great technique. I completely 100% believe that. And I can prove this too because I've spoken to a ton, and I mean a ton, of amazing world-class and very high-level professional players.
Yes.
And when I ask them how they got good, they always give me the same answer. I just played along with records. They all say that, and without a shadow of doubt. Now, have they used the Arbans book? Yes, a little bit. To solve a specific problem. But I'm going to be cynical for a second, and I'm saying this because I'm trying to be a bit courageous on this podcast to say it.
Do it.
A bit more courageous.
Do it.
The unfortunate truth is that I'm not saying that the people who make these method books' intention is bad. I'm not. I do believe that they are trying to help people, and they will help some people. I'm no two ways about it. But a really easy way to get passive income with your skill as a teacher is to write your routine out and then get people to buy it so that you don't have to be with them to teach it, because then you can help more people. And I do think this helps. But the cynical part of me says this, that there's one route for everyone isn't true, and therefore selling that isn't true, and then people are buying into it, and then they're getting lost and stuck.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to say that all method books are without purpose, that they do serve a purpose, but I don't know how much you can't just learn from aiming correctly and chipping away. It's like hitting a golf ball. It's like hitting a golf ball into a driving range with no target. You don't get better at golf.
What's a great musician? A number of the best trumpet players I've ever met, I'd say, who's the first one that inspired you? Or Herb Albert. Now, by any definition of a technically great trumpet player, Herb's not that, including by his own definition. But Herb was the guy that Miles Davis said, hear 3 notes and you know it's Herb Albert. Wow. And I mean, isn't that what it's all about? So Herb said from a pretty young age, he realised he wasn't going to be a great trumpet player, but he also realised he had his own sound. And of course, he became, if you want to talk about a commercially successful trumpet player, Herb's, I think he's still the only one.
The number one, yeah.
He's the number one.
Yeah.
And apparently the nicest guy you'll ever meet too. And you hear when he's in a podcast interview, there's no, look at me, how great I am. He keeps talking about, he found his special gift was his sound, and he spent his life expressing himself through the horn, focusing on his own unique sound. You've been playing trumpet for now, what?
24 years.
24 years. Well, I'm looking close up at your lips there, and you don't have Louis Armstrong's embouchure. So however you are playing, and you are pushing the limits on that horn, you have worked out your own way, or through lessons with people. Do you want to talk about that for a moment, efficiency? Because there's no way your face can look like it does. I'm talking about no obvious damage to your lips, from a guy who spends a lot of time right up there, way up in the stratosphere at full volume. Can you talk a little bit about and it's different no doubt for everyone, but how have you approached that efficiency challenge on one of the hardest instruments in the world?
When I have been at my best is when I felt invincible. When I felt invincible has been when my levels of doubt have not exceeded my levels of confidence. Is kind of the wrong word, but we'll call it faith instead.
Okay. If
you're 10 years old, you can make as many mistakes as you want, and you'll feel like you can be forgiven.
That's right.
When you're 18 years old, it starts to get a bit more serious.
Yeah.
When you're 25 years old and you're right in the middle of it, and you're thick of it, and you're working, you have a mortgage to pay, you can't make mistakes. And then you hit that, because then you won't get booked for the next thing, and you hear this, And I have been able to do the most crazy things on the trumpet when I have been in positions where I have cared the least. And what I mean by cared the least is being least self-absorbed.
Yes.
Where I've just wanted to just go, bah,
yes,
and do it without the fear of the person up there, but also the fear that the trumpet will say no to me. So I'm just coming out with this new philosophy now where everyone talks about, this is related to endurance, by the way. It's just, I can't answer it in such a practical way.
No, this is good.
This is the most practical answer in my opinion.
Yep.
If I imagine playing third space C, the best way, like the easiest, most comfortable, this is where I want the note to be. I want the note to be here because this is the comfiest way it's going to be played.
Yep.
And so what I do is I imagine that, properly imagine it as hard as I can. This is where this note is going to be. And then I pick the horn up, and I don't play where I think a C is. I play where I want the C to be. Now, if the trumpet plays an E or a G on a different partial, I blame the trumpet. I say, why are you not doing what I told you to do?
Yeah. That's interesting.
Why are you not doing what I told you to do? And because I used to do the opposite, which it's actually awful. What you do is you play a note, then you listen to the sound and you go, oh, that's not what I wanted it to be. It's the first note of the day. Now I need to go into this whole change everything up. How do I make this sound better? How do I make it sound better? How do I become a servant to the instrument? Now, the trumpet is one of these instruments where people say, I think is a Dizzy Gillespie quote was something like, some days you win, some days the trumpet wins, but when Dizzy you die, the trumpet wins.
That's it, Dizzy Gillespie quote. Yeah.
And to a degree, I completely agree with that, in that, yes, some days the trumpet does win.
Yeah.
But I also think that the trumpet wins because you let it. And all I do now when I pick the horn up, I don't have any warm-up routine, nothing like that, nothing. I decide where the note's going to be, where I want the note to be.
Yeah.
And then it's like a marriage.
Yeah.
I then lead and tell the instrument, this is where a C is.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, that's the mindset. This is the best version of that note.
This is fantastic.
And then the instrument either says okay or it says no.
Yeah.
And if it says no, you say to it, I'm right.
Yeah.
And then you go in again. And now obviously what's happening behind the scenes is a bunch of weird, crazy subconscious stuff.
Yeah.
The instrument comes to you.
Yes.
That's the perception. And when that's the perception, then all of a sudden you stop doubting yourself. So you build the whole practice session on trust. It starts there. I trust what this note is going to feel like. I want it to feel this way.
Yeah.
So the thing is, it's relative to endurance, because if you know how it feels to play, and this is a James Morrison-y thing, which I need to one day talk to him about. If I know how it feels, and I believe it feels that way, and the trumpet isn't doing what I need it to do, go get another trumpet, or go and get something that's going to help you more do what you feel needs to be.
Yes.
The only reason that endurance gets in the way is that our chops are changing all the time. Our embouchure is changing every day, different levels of hydration. People say, I'm having an embouchure change, and I say, well, I have an embouchure change every day.
Yep.
It's just it's a different set of cells.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I have to fool my body into being king.
Yeah.
And the trumpet has to fall in line with me. And now when I'm in that mindset, even before, I only realized this the last few days, when I live in that mindset, the trumpet just works.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't work initially, but it works eventually.
Yeah.
If instead I start from a place of doubt, where I put the horn on my face, I listen to the sound, then I judge.
Yeah.
I then am playing catch up to the instrument.
It makes perfect sense to me, and I want our listeners, as I said, this is not a trumpet podcast, but whether you play flute or bass guitar or baritone sax, it's the same thing. And I really encourage you to try, and you would be an ideal host to have a discussion with James Morrison on this, because he's a rare dude. I just want to share with you, Gordon Goodwin, I just cannot believe they're over there at the Blue Note in Tokyo, and James is with them. James is on the tour. They're all at the back. Wayne and everyone's buzzing the mouthpiece and the tuning slide and doing the warm-ups. James is sitting back having a cup of tea, and his instruments are out on the stage. And Gordon's looking at the watch thinking, we're hitting the downbeats in like 10 minutes. James, do you want me to go out and get your instruments? No, it's cool. But what about the warm-up? No, it's right. I'm okay. And Gordon's just thinking, this is going to be a disaster. James has got the trumpet there, walks out, just nails it. He is just questioning God and everyone. How is this possible? Because while some of the best players in the world have been going through their warm-ups and exercise, this bloke's been sitting back almost snoring. But his philosophy is what you've been talking about. Someone asked him, James, how do you just walk out without a warm-up? He said, I've been warming up all afternoon. I've been thinking about the gig all afternoon. Yeah. He's been thinking about the gig, how he's going to play. He didn't need the instrument for 3 hours. Have you got a thought on that?
I'm going to double down. I'm going to double down on that.
Yeah.
If he plays the instrument, all he does is add to his doubt. Let me explain. Let me
No,
explain
go
why.
Explain. I think I know why. Yeah.
I haven't spoken to him about this, and I can't wait to talk to him about it because I learned this the other day from being in Toronto with the Salvation Army, who had him there, and he arrived on the Monday for a Saturday evening gig. 7:00 was the gig. And they said to him, "What do you want to do for rehearsals?" And he said, "If I could have it my way, the trumpets stay in the back of the car now until Saturday at 7:00. They're left on the stage, and I walk out of my cab at 6:59, and I walk onto stage and I play. If I could have it my way." Now, I don't know what James's rationale is. I can't speak for him. I've never spoken to him in my life.
But you should,
But I'm excited because I'm going to do it. Here's my rationale for it, and this is why I haven't spoken about this, but I had the last 5 years my playing has been very up and down, like pretty bad. I'll be honest. I almost gave the trumpet up in 2023.
Wow.
Because it was hurting my neck so much. I got so in my head about everything. I was trying to reach for the apple and trying to account for things that I hadn't accounted for in my playing and grow too fast. I was trying to fix everything. I had this idea that I had to fix everything. Now, this room right here, I built it, and as I started practicing in here, my playing went bad, really bad. I started overblowing. It was very uncomfortable. I've got to work. I'll be very uncomfortable at work. I make it work because that's what pros do. And then you force through it, and then it starts hurting even more and more and more. Now, the thing I just mentioned about feeling it first and then playing it is the thing that fixed this.
Yes.
But here's the next level. And this is what I think why James doesn't warm up, and why I'm starting to consider this as an option too, at least in terms. You have to prepare. Yeah. But how you prepare is different. Now, let me give you an example. If I go into a sound check as a soloist, and I've got my wedge in front of me for monitoring. Yep. Or I got my in-ears or something like that, my wedge. Let's call it a wedge. Yep. And the sound guy is trying to get my wedge perfect for me. Yep. Right. The guys in the band, they're kind of saving their chops. They don't want to play too hard. No. Right? We get to the gig, and I'm very comfortable, by the way. Everything's fine. Everything's great. I feel comfortable. I know how it feels. Everything's good. We get to the gig. The room is full of 500 people, which are like the most absorbent sound absorbers ever. Exactly. The band are absolutely, they're like fired up and pumped up, so they're playing 5 times louder. Yep. And I'm going to the wedge guy. Make it louder, make it louder, make it louder. I can't hear myself. And then you start doubting. So by having a sound check and not trusting how it feels, you totally doubt everything. Yeah. And look, this is really high level stuff because I can't do this yet. My intention is to start putting myself in the exact environment that I'm going to be in. Yeah. And then being in here and then pretending I'm in that environment and playing like I'm in that environment, not listening to the end of the instrument at all. No. And I think James is probably doing that. He might be sitting in his hotel room, imagining the horn he's playing, the mouthpiece he's playing, the charts he has to play, what he's wearing, what he's eaten, what the room feels like with those people, what the spirit of the room is like, and what he needs to contribute to that spirit. And then just does that over and over and over again, walks out on stage and just goes through that sensation of feeling, rather than through the sensation of like thinking when you're in the moment. Let's take a breath and have a look and a listen to you play. You mentioned it earlier, Go the Distance, another really good arrangement. You're on flugelhorn here. I think at the start, I don't know, do you change to trumpet? You may change to trumpet, I think, later on. It's a fantastic arrangement and great playing. Let's have a look and a listen to Go the Distance.
Okay, Lewis, fantastic. What a musical version of Go the Distance. You know, you're picking, I suppose, and I often say to people, I just want your feedback on this. It takes just as much blood, sweat, and tears to learn how to play a bad song as it does to learn to play a song that you like and that other people might like. Have you focused, the videos we've shown today are all wonderful pieces of music. Before you play a note, you've got a wonderful canvas on which to paint your story. Have you got any thoughts about some people really pick some abstract music that I don't think they even believe in, and certainly they will struggle to get the general population to buy it? Are you careful at what you pick to put your time into as far as material?
I love this question.
Yeah.
There was an age-old conversation when we were growing up. Why are you playing music? This is the intention conversation, and part of the reason that I wanted to possibly give up in 2023 was because I didn't have a good enough answer to why I was playing.
Yeah.
And the reason I was playing, at least what I felt that the reason why, clearly the way that I propositionally behaved, in a propositional belief, if you will, the way that I actually lived my life was that I was playing music for money so that I could afford the things that I needed and wanted and that I thought I could use to raise my kids.
Yes.
Because I didn't have a worldview that would allow for something different. The story I told myself was that this is what my point is to earn money to do this. I didn't have anything else. Now that comes from a very self-centered mindset. Again, there was nothing else to point my aim at. I'm always concerned with people that say things like, I'm going to play this piece of music for me, and if everyone else likes it, then great. I'm also concerned with people that say, I'm going to play this piece of music because I know I'll get loads and loads of views.
Equally as, yeah.
They're both problems.
They are.
Because the story that both those people are telling each other they're kind of the same story, but they limit themselves at themselves. So, for example, the guy that says, I'll make this piece of music to get views is, it's already contrived.
Yeah.
It's already calculated, which means that you can't invest your soul in it. It doesn't work. You can make micro decisions on things that you think will be more effective or not, but you're still being contrived, so you'll be limited. And then the other person that says, I'm going to make music that I love, and then other people can like it if they want, has a sense of entitlement about it that makes me feel like they don't have a service mindset. The intention that I have settled on, and the one that has completely and utterly changed my life, is this. The old mindset used to be, this is maybe a British thing, so the old mindset used to be, I have worked really hard at playing the trumpet well, and now I earn money doing it, and but it would be prideful and arrogant to let anyone know that.
Oh, seriously? Wow.
The self-deprecation and self-loathing levels were extraordinary, to the point where I had to push every element of my offering down so that no one would know. Now, ironically, I had videos on the internet, but I was too scared to show who I was because I was almost ashamed of the videos. So I'm not trying to be a victim here. I'm trying to just tell you the truth.
That's great.
Because what happens is that that story ultimately dies when you have bigger questions that you have to ask.
Yes.
And so the new story that I have is, I have been given a series of gifts that are unique and talents that I have an obligation to share with the world through service.
Yeah.
And money is a byproduct of that.
Yeah.
It's not relevant. But this is definitely related to the question, in that if you don't know why you're doing it, then you won't be able to do it very well.
Yeah.
And this story is so much better because the obligation to need to use those skills and gifts means that you are humble enough to grow more. Because you have to be humble to grow, otherwise you just know everything already. So as soon as I dropped all of those things, everything like the whole world sort of started opening up above my head. And I feel like the reason that people would say something like, "Oh, I'll play this piece of music because it's what I want to do," is that again, it's just a self-limit, and it's I have no interest in serving other people, just myself. And I know where that ends. Like, I already know where that ends. It ends. I've lived there.
Yeah.
It just in a different way. I was more the kind of guy who was making stuff to get views.
Yes.
The thing is, the irony is though, is that it wasn't contrived, which is why it worked.
Yes.
When I tried to make my second album, there was this huge door in my way because my soul wouldn't let me do it. And it's for the same reason that we made a contrived product right off the bat, which meant that it couldn't work. I already had enough faith to realize it didn't work.
Yeah.
So the new story, and this is the story that I would urge everyone to live with, if they're going through something like this, is the story that you are a set of unique gifts, and you should be grateful for the gifts, and you should want to use them to inspire. Let me give you a last example before I stop talking about this.
That's okay.
I spoke to one of the best trumpet players in the world. I won't name who it is because I don't want to. I don't know how he would feel about it. One of the greatest trumpet players in the world. And some of his music wasn't on Spotify. Actually, none of it was on Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Why is your music not on Spotify?" And he said, "Well, I'm not really into that sort of thing." And I respected that in a way, but I also realized that the world needs to hear this music.
Yeah.
Like, it needs to hear it. And I asked him, "What inspired you to make that album that you haven't got on Spotify?" And he said, "Well, it was this other trumpet player, another world-class trumpet player. I won't name who it is.
No.
I heard this album, and it was recorded exactly 30 years before I made my album. And he got all fired up talking about this album. I thought, so it's okay that this person released the album.
Yeah, shared it.
And shared it.
Yeah.
But you're concerned about looking as though you're offering. And actually, the result of that conversation was that the album is now available. And
congratulations.
And well, I'm not. This isn't from a place of pride for me.
No.
It was the story that I had chosen to live.
Yes.
Brought more amazing music into the world, even if I didn't make it. So I would urge everyone to carry the story and to inspire as many people as you can with the gifts that you have been given. Because life is so much easier if you live it that way, and you start seeing so many more things. So, going back to the question of get your intention right. I've given you the intention that I think works well. You have to believe it, though. So you have to test it. Test the intention and see how it works for you. There will be people that look at you and go, no, this guy's changed or whatever, right? But test the intention, and when you test it, you'll see that it works. You'll see the joy that you bring to people, and you'll. Again, this is particularly difficult for trumpet players. This is difficult for professional musicians whose passion has been eaten by the industry.
I just want to congratulate you. You've been really open and honest today. We've went in some little rabbit holes that I didn't even think we'd go in. But for someone, I've got to say to you, you play the trumpet as good as anyone I've ever heard. My hero was Doc Severinsen. And I've still yet, and you might agree or disagree, I don't think the world will ever hear a better trumpet sound than Doc in his prime.
Outrageous.
It's outrageous, isn't it? It's outrageous. But the videos I've played of you today, I sit back and I just sat back and thought, man, Louis is one hell of a musician first who happens to play the trumpet. Because, there's so many trumpet players who are all the theatrics. I'm going to show you, I'm playing a beautiful ballad, but I'm going to hit triple high C just to show you I can hit it. And I'm sort of thinking, okay. Or I'm going to play really fast, I'm going to play really loud. All of the videos we've shown, you have been in the moment with great musicianship, surrounded by wonderful players. And I've got to give a shout out to your younger sister, who in some of those clips was the only female there, and she's playing the trombone beautifully.
Oh, awesome.
I love that. What a wonderful thing to share that with a family member. But the sort of things you've talked about today, dealing with some of your insecurities, mate, watching you playing, screaming over that big band, I'm guaranteeing you that you would probably be the only person to say, I wonder whether Louis is got any doubts about, what he's doing on the instrument. You are playing with so much outward confidence, and yet you were brave enough to share with the world that, well, actually, I almost gave it up. A couple of years ago, I almost walked away from what you have dedicated your life to. I think that is so brave, and I think it's so powerful, because I'll guarantee you there'll be musicians on, the bassoon players thinking, I've had a gutload of the bassoon, and you saying that, hey, this happened to me too, but I twisted it around.
You have to change the story, and then you have to live the story, and then everything gets better. But you have to kind of go to hell. Like, you actually have to go there, and then you feel it. I just don't want people to have to go quite as deep, and I think you can change the story before. It's definitely worth it.
Share this podcast with anyone you want to. I hope the world hears your story, because it's very, very powerful. We're going to end with a great big band version you've done of Sing, Sing, Sing. Now, one of the first jazz records I got, I don't know whether my parents bought it, but it was the Benny Goodman Carnegie Hall concert where Sing, Sing, Sing was recorded with a pretty good trumpet player called Harry James, nailing the solos.
Not bad.
Not bad. Now, you have got a spectacular band here. I think it's Peter Long on clarinet. What a clarinet solo. Oh, yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about this? Because this goes back to the 1930s. This is a whole other era of big band music, but you found a great way to present it. Tell us about your decision to record Sing, 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 and just anything you want to share about this video.
Sure. Well, Pete Long was, so I mentioned the Sid Lawrence Orchestra earlier, which was one of the main bands, one of the main stepping stones, if you will, in my journey as a trumpet player. Pete Long is a band leader in London, runs tons of different bands.
Okay.
And is an entrepreneur himself in that regard. He's a fantastic band leader. This guy's got unbelievable spirit and energy. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I should really podcast him. It'd be really fun.
Good.
He's an amazing guy, and I think maybe Callum and I, we must have said something like, well, Sing Sing Sing's a popular tune. Let's try and do it our way. We'll Callum-ify it, if you will, and we'll get Pete to do the clarinet solo. And I even remember, it's really funny. I had this idea in my mind. I'm learning this in this moment when I say this.
Yeah.
I had this idea in my mind that we'd have like an Eddie Daniels style clarinet solo. For anyone that knows Eddie Daniels, very incredible clarinetist.
Yes.
Clean.
Yeah.
Just perfect.
Technical. Yeah.
And I thought in my mind, I was like, oh yeah, we'll get it. And so Pete brings his Eddie Daniels style clarinet, and he brings his Pete Long style clarinet. And Pete plays Sing Sing Sing, the Carnegie Hall version of this, on gigs all the time.
Does he? Okay, yeah.
Because he runs a Benny Goodman band. And we start recording, and he's got this Eddie Daniels-y clarinet with this sweeter sound and stuff.
Yep.
And we start recording it, and I'm like, you can feel that there's a disconnect.
Yeah.
In the session, and I just remember I'm going back to the studio now, like just thinking, and I can feel like his anxiety with it, like he's trying to.
It's just not working. Yeah.
He just doesn't, and then I said, you know what, mate, put that thing away and get your one out and be you, just be you, completely you.
Oh.
And the solo you heard there was just him being completely him.
It is outrageously good. Yeah.
I learned a lot from just that moment. Asking someone to be someone that they're not, be a chameleon, doesn't always harbour the best results. If you want Eddie Daniels, just have the balls to call Eddie Daniels to do it. But
exactly.
What I realised is I actually wanted Pete, but I didn't know I wanted Pete.
Look, this is it is great, and again, all of those musicians you've got, they're a great fit. The trumpet career, you've picked an instrument that I guess is associated with a young man's career. So many of the old trumpet boys got to 50 and that's it. They really couldn't play. The way you play, unless it's an illusion, I think you could play right. You could do a doc and play through into your 70s, because I don't know. You give me the illusion when you're playing that It's fun. It's not hard work. But is that an illusion? You talked about having some problems. Are you, I guess, semi-killing yourself to do what you're doing? And if so, what's your career trajectory as a first-rate trumpeter in your mind?
Okay, from a practical level, yeah, I've hurt myself playing. Not forever. It was part of the hell that I had to experience.
Yes.
And there are two stories. There's the one where you go into hell and you stay there, or there's the one that you come out. They're the only two stories there are.
Only options, yeah. That's right.
And every story that you hear, from Paddington Bear to Winnie the Pooh, fit into those two stories.
Yes.
Now, when things were going bad, I was living in one story, and now I'm living in another story, and I think I know how to find the other story. In all of these changes that I've been discussing today, a lot of things have happened to me and my beliefs.
Yep.
And all I know is that I don't know what I want, and that no one does.
No.
And that if I try and dictate what I think I should do for the next 60 years, I will be living in disappointment. Yep. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to be a trumpet player. It doesn't mean, and I must say, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a pilot.
I wanted to be a helicopter pilot. It never happened. Yeah.
Now, I don't regret not being a pilot. I could be a pilot. I've got good enough eyesight. I could do it.
Yeah.
I've flown a plane before. It'd be fun. James Morrison can fly a plane.
Yeah, he does.
I wanted to be a pilot, but I was a trumpet player. And I will be totally straight with you here. I've never known anything other than trumpet. My whole life, I've just done trumpet.
Yeah.
Literally only trumpet.
Yes.
I've never earned money doing anything else.
No.
That's all I've done. It's all I know. And I'm not saying that it's going to go anywhere because I'm fed up with it.
No.
But when you go so deeply into one thing, it kind of tracks onto other stuff. Do you see what I mean? Like,
yes.
You can kind of... And I don't want... this is the first time in my life where I've been open enough in my vision to be okay and not too fearful. If I think I'd be okay if I could never play the trumpet again. Here's the thing, and I wanted to say this on this podcast. When I was at school, we were all asked or told, you must have a backup plan. And I said, why? And they were like, well, because if you damage your teeth or something like that. If there's anyone out there who's a kid and is a driven kid, I was very driven. Yes. And if anyone asks you the question, have you got a backup plan? What that sounds like to me is indecision. It says, we don't need to go that deep into this because I don't really need to. I never had a backup plan. I was the only person in the class who didn't have a backup plan, and I'm the only person today playing professionally. Yeah. So it's not that I want to. This idea of falling back onto something is one of the worst phrases I've ever heard. Yeah. You have to make an intentional transition to something in your life because you feel a calling towards it. Now, the trumpet for me has gone from being a means to make money to support my family, which it can be one purpose of it. Yeah. But what I see the trumpet now as is a conduit to doing whatever is required of me in this world. And that's what's so exciting, is that the story has changed and the mission has changed. And I'm going to hit 100,000 subscribers on YouTube in 6 subscribers.
Congratulations. And you deserve it. Yeah.
But the reason I'm telling you this is because I'm holding myself to account by telling you this on a podcast.
Yeah, okay, good.
That I have to make a 100,000 subscriber video, and I'm terrified of making the 100,000 subscriber video.
I want to see it. I will be waiting for it.
It's not going to be a big deal.
No.
It's just going to be me on the internet for the first time.
Yes.
And this is the thing. You asked me about the longevity of my career.
Yeah.
For the first time in my life, I'm open to the prospect that trumpet isn't the only thing that I have to offer.
Great.
And I don't know what that means.
Oh, I think it means you're going to lead a really good life.
It's going to be something interesting, and I don't know what it is, but I'm trying. The spirit that I'm in right this second is the spirit that I'm going to try and find at all times. And people will sit there and they'll be skeptical about it, and they'll say, well, you need to da 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 da. I don't know what's going to happen, but I've got enough faith right now that as long as I do my thing, I'm going to be all right.
Normally I ask people for their best piece of advice. I think you've given so much advice. Is there anything, just in general, beyond what you've said, that you would like to leave the audience as your best piece of advice? Not about playing the trumpet, just in general. It can be about life.
If you're ever confused about what you should be doing, just be the person that you would hope your kids would bump into.
Beautiful. Louis, thanks so much for being part of the series. This has been a really great conversation. I'm keen to share it with the world, and I think I've learned a lot from it. And I just congratulate you on being honest enough and open enough to go down some of these directions that maybe you haven't before, but it's been very powerful. Thank you for being part of the series.
Thank you very much for having me. I've absolutely loved talking to you, and hopefully this will help someone.
I'm sure it will. Let's go out with Sing, Sing, Sing. Louis what he would like to play to finish out the episode as part of the collaboration video. He suggested the beautiful Disney melody, Someday My Prince Will Come. I'm playing bass clarinet, and you'll hear Louis play some beautiful, relaxed, melodic jazz trumpet. Please enjoy our version of Someday My Prince Will Come.